second delay, they should be live. So, right. Oh, the curse continues. And we'll forever trying to find a new way to actually get this to work right one of these months, years, weeks, ever. Okay, so welcome everyone to the September MonoGame open house session where you, the community, get to talk to us and we get to show you all the new stuff that's coming and we can chat, exchange questions. And given we've already lost 15 minutes of this month and we still want to power on, we shall keep going. So September is here. This is our 3rd anniversary. So the foundation has now been around for 3 years, which is a scary thing. Lots of stuff we've been doing and pushing ahead. And obviously with all the funding and support that we've had, we're ever going faster. As obviously people can see now, we've had more releases, more updates, more comments, more feedback, more engagement than we've had in probably the 10 years previous we had in MonoGame. And hopefully everyone can appreciate that. And for those who can support us into doing more, we ever encourage people to help out where they can, or if they know a friendly game or studio that's helping or flourishing with MonoGame, then we should try to help out. So lots to update with you this month. We're going to keep some things brief because they're old and new, but we have newer things and bolder things that are coming to the forefront now and edging ever closer to release and to get everything into everyone's hands. So rather than usual whip around, we're going to jump straight into the content. And I'm going to pass over to Thomas to talk about Vulkan. So, Thomas, you can hit the road.
Yeah, thanks. So, Vulkan. So, if you've been looking at the activity on the GitHub repository, you'd have noticed maybe that we are trying to make a push on trying to get Desktop VK released. So Desktop VK is going to be the next generation backend equivalent to a current Desktop GL. And we hope that it's going to supersede it and to be the better version of it and the one that will be able to build upon more easily. So the most part of it has been made by Tom and is also lately, previously refactored it to make it into a native backend. So it's kind of the test of the whole thing. So it's going to be the premiere of our new native backend and also a next generation backend of all. So working on macOS, Linux, and Windows. And currently, there is a few issues that are still blocking its way for release, but we are getting very close. There is only 2 issues that are really quite hairy and requires some knowledge, some very deep knowledge of Vulkan. And so we are going to tackle this slightly internally because it's slightly behind the knowledge of what we can support on a bounty, and we also want to push it real quick. So maybe the bounty process is going to be a bit too slow in the process. So trying to get Vulkan out soon. It's almost done. It works. There is only like something like a pesky graphical issue and just some compatibility to work on. But for the most part, it works. For the people who are brave enough, they can already try to build it and use it. So it works. But we want to make sure that it's all good in all edges. And so if you want to follow the progress, there is an issue on the repository that is called Road to Release Desktop VK. And you can follow what's going on there. And so you'll see that there are only a couple of issues. I've added some emojis of flames next to them, which are basically the hotspots. And all the other issues are going to likely be tackled in a more conventional way and easier way. But so just waiting for these 2 to clear. And once they are cleared, we can maybe start coding it today and start packaging it and start releasing it. So No schedule for now, but it's likely one of the closest that is has ever been, and that's pretty much what I can say.
Cool. Yeah, Vulkan's exciting. That's something that we've been pushing for a while. I'll disclose that Vulkan code was originally written for Stadia back in the day when Stadia was a thing. And it was my first attempt at Vulkan, so there was definitely some bugs baked in there from that time. That project never finished, so it kind of was in the state that it was. And it's in a lot better shape now, so we're getting very close to a point where it is shippable. So that'll be an important part for us moving forward. And now that Vulkan is getting close, we're going to, I think in the movement of some of the Vulkan stuff, Tomas, I think that we broke a couple things possibly in DX. So, and I know that I've had some feedback from people on the console side on some DX stuff, on DX12 specifically. So I'll be spending some time revisiting the DX12 stuff so that hopefully we can get that up to speed as well, and then we'll have two brand new backends, Vulkan and DX12, which Vulkan will get you to all desktop platforms, and DX12 is mainly for Xbox and Windows only. So yeah, it's pretty great to have that there. I guess what's next on our agenda here? Ascent. Let's talk about Ascent. Or is there anything else we need to cover first?
I don't think so. You can go on, I think.
Cool. All right. Let's see. I'm going to share my screen if I can remember how to do it. I cannot share my
2 seconds,
screen.
Tom, because I'll have to stop sharing to let you share.
Oh, okay. Well, that's right. You can't share both at the same time. That's annoying.
Yep. So go on. You go.
Yep. Let me pick the screen here. All right. Picking a screen. So things are a little rougher than I wanted to show. I was kind of working on some stuff today, but I'll show where we're kind of at. So we're starting to get some of the new art in place. The new materials are not done, so it's still using kind of the old material path. But we're starting to get what we're wanting to hit here. Some complexity in the scene with a lot of rock and mixed in materials. The environment pieces have this. By the way, this new UI in here came from the GUM team, and it's great. It's much better for our editing purposes than what we had, the garbage that I had before, which I did. So this is a lot better. You can come in here and adjust like the parts that are visible. Find the right one. Still working on the UI for that a little bit so that we can get something a little neater, so you can kind of really tell, what's being turned on. So you can kind of turn on parts here to kind of get a variance in the mesh. So it's not just, what we didn't want to do is have to like put down one piece at a time and line them all up and everything else. So we're like, well, let's build kind of a master mesh for these pieces. So you just drop in a room and then you can toggle elements on and off to customize the room the way that you want it to work. So if I wanted to do that or this, I could do that if I wanted to. And then, they could turn that door frame on there.
We've lost your stream.
What?
Can you try unsharing and resharing?
Great. Let's try again.
Discord is killing us today.
Yep. How about now?
Yay, we're back again.
Okay. So those part things are working pretty good. Like here, this little rock tunnel piece here. This is the same part here right after this one that has these in it. Oh, no shadows. Let's turn our shadows on that guy. Wait, is that the right one? Yeah, it is. I must not see shadows. It's interesting. Is it because of the radius, maybe? I don't know. No, it's not the radius. Yeah, I guess it sort of is radius, but anyways. So this is getting better. I'm getting happy where this is at. The materials still are not right. Like, we're switching everything over to physical based rendering kind of material. So it's using a a map that has both roughness, metallic, and it also has an ambient occlusion, so we get a little bit of ambient occlusion and baked into the materials. That, along with all the lights, is going to really make it look fantastic. My next steps in all this is and we have some physics in here now, so if I bump into these guys, I get some nice physics and stuff. We haven't spent time. I spent a lot of time on like the world tools and physics and some of the core stuff, but we haven't spent a lot in rendering, but we haven't spent time on like sounds or gameplay in the last couple months. So that'll kind of be the next big thing after that, is getting more gameplay in here and working on sound effects and stuff like that. I currently have collision disabled on these guys, so shooting them does not, push them around, but that's the plan. And some of these rooms are broken as we're dropping in some new pieces. There's another spot. And then after all this, rendering wise, I'm going to try to hit, a better ambient or a better ambient lighting solution than just flat ambient lighting. And I'm going to try to hit something for a little bit of atmospheric, so a little bit of depth fog and stuff. And I still want to try to hit particles, but particles is going to be the next big thing. So this is still going to be an ongoing larger project. So I don't expect it to be done in the next month or two, but we're going to keep pushing on this to have something, really polished that, shows off MonoGame really well, and that is available to everybody to learn from and experiment with or base their own projects on. It'll be pretty neat once it's completed. So that's where we're at here.
We'll try and extract some. It'd be good if we can also try to make from a lot of things you're talking about. Obviously, especially when it comes to 3D, there's a lot of these tips and techniques and ways to build things, especially if you're going to make them console friendly. So we probably want to find ways to document or build specific content around those subjects as well from this sample, using it as the showcase.
Right. Yeah, for sure. It can definitely be used to learn from. And that's something that we're focusing on, especially with the other starter kit, is making something where people can learn from it. This is a debug build at the moment. I'll turn on some debug stuff. So I mean, it's a debug build running full screen, which on my screen here is almost 4K, I think it is, or it's 2.5K or something like that. It's still running at 200 frames per second. So like the performance is great, even with a lot of mesh data and all the lighting and everything that's happening. So, and this is a debug build. If I put it in release, it'll be running at 1,000 frames a second. So we're in really good shape for performance and everything here. I think that it'll really show off what we're capable of doing here, which was always capable. It was just a matter of pulling it all together. So, and the other thing as part of this, and I'll talk about this also, talking about the other when we talk about the other starter kit, is the pipeline, the content pipeline. One thing that we're focusing on right now, so Harry did this new content pipeline front end, because the content pipeline has always been kind of controversial. Where is it in here? There we go. So we have this new structure for content that we're working on. That's in both of these demos, this one and also on the platformer starter kit, where you just have a C# content project, just like old school XNA, and in it, you have this builder folder with a builder CS, which is actually your content building code, where it runs the content builder, and
switch the screen back to the slide since you talked through points in the roadmap.
I'm not talking to points in the roadmap. I'm showing something on the screen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because you're only showing people know you're only showing just the game still.
It's just showing the game? What the hell? I told to share my screen. Is it not sharing my screen? Okay, hang on.
Yeah, all you can see is this same game.
Okay, sorry. I was trying to share my screen. I guess I didn't. Okay, so now you should see the.
Oh yeah, that's much better, Tom. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll zoom this in a little bit because it's a little easier. But so this new builder thing, you have a content project like you did back in the day. But it's a regular C# program. It's not a content project like then. It's a program. So with the program, it has a builder CS, which is the main entry point. It creates a builder, calls run on the command line arguments, and returns an error on failure. And the builder itself defines your content. So instead of having like a separate CS proj that you add things to, you basically come in here. So it's like, hey, include everything in the content. So this is kind of like the SDK style projects in .NET, except it's not a .NET project, it's code. So because of that, you can execute whatever you want. So we're saying, hey, include all the FBXs in the project, use the FBX importer, and use our normal mapping processor, which is our custom processor, and scale everything down. Then here's another one. We also have a couple of X files because they come from the original Ascent demo. So, include those and do the same thing, and then include everything in the power-ups folder. Even though this is here, this lets us specialize, right? So it's saying power-ups FBX, use this normal map processor with this scale. So it uses a different scale between these, and load all the FBX for levels, and that, turn on mesh collisions and change its scale. So you can see kind of like how you define how it works. We have an exclude here saying, hey, just ignore these HLSL files. They're not real shaders. Exclude those. Exclude that 3ds Max file. Don't try to make a model out of it or process it. It's just in there for content. And then I have some code here to exclude some texture stuff that doesn't need to be including right now. But this is pretty much your content project now. Which is neat, so this is all new structure, and then here you can see we have an assets folder that just has it just includes all the assets in here just to visually be able to see what's actually your assets you're building. So these are the assets it's going to build. This is the script. What is that?
Probably worth pointing out there, Tom, just for clarification, is that you're only adding in exceptions. The default is everything imports that's in that folder with the default processors and default importers for those content. Right. And the things we've got in here are just exceptions. So these are things we have special cases to handle.
Right.
For everything else, you don't have to worry about it. It just automatically gets pulled in.
Right. It works the same way as C# SDK projects, where by default, everything is included. In our case, by default, nothing is included. You actually have to do an include star to include everything. I'm pretty sure that's the case. And then we're overriding this. These are all specializations saying, okay, include everything, but when you include all the FBXs, use this processor with this. And when you include X's, you do this. And when you include these FBXs, do that. So you're kind of specializing as it goes down, this list of things, and it just applies one after the other, and it ends up with the final rules. So that's all really cool. Another cool thing, in the process of testing this, and this is why we're doing this, is to dog food this and understand how it works and learn how best to use it. In the process of doing this, we learned a couple of interesting things that, we didn't expect. Because of this, how this is, we were well, we used to have a separate project for the custom content processors. Well, we don't need that anymore. If this is a real C# project, we can just include our custom content processors directly in this project. So our custom content processor is in the project directly. It is not a separate project. So you just end up in a normal game, you would just have your game project and your content project, and that's it. You don't need here's my content processor's project. Unnecessary. You can just go into the content project, which is really nice. The other neat thing about that is, and let me stop debugging here and this again. But the other neat thing about that I learned the other day is if I just put this in here, this debugger launch at the beginning, then I can basically debug the content processor. So here's my custom content processor. I can basically debug it. I don't think it might not actually run because everything is built at the moment. I don't want to rebuild everything because it's a little bit slow because of, the size of some of our content. So when you run it, so I hit F5 to run the game, but in the process of running the game, it says, okay, rebuild content, which executes that content exe. But then it runs our code and says, oh, you want to launch a debugger? Pick where you want to launch it. Well, I'm just going to launch it in this window here. So it's going to start debugging it here. And now I'm debugging the content project, which is really nice. So I can step through all this code and see exactly how it's building content, which was when I got it to do that, I was like, wow, that's really cool. It didn't do anything more here and right after it launched that, then it ran the regular debugger to keep going. So I could debug my content building, and after it get done debugging the content building, it launched the game because I had started with F5. So that's a really neat unification of all this, which I think is shows how good this actually works. So I'm really happy with those results, that we're getting this all to unify together and work like this. So yeah, and we're still working out bugs here. That's one of the things that's been a little bit of a slowdown on the other starter kits is, we really want to launch starter kits strong. We don't want to launch them using the old MGFX file stuff, or not MGFX, but MGCB files and the old pipeline. We're really pushing for the new starter kits to use the new pipeline so that people have a very smooth experience. And in the process, we're learning these problems that we have here and fixing things. So on a regular basis, just today we came across 2 other things that we're working on here to improve this. To make it work. So let me jump over to the starter kit platformer, and this is the same thing. So this is the 3D platformer starter kit.
Yeah, just clarify one other thing there, Tom, because it's a question that keeps coming up. So when people have got their own custom content process, or they've got ones in NuGet packages, or they've got like MonoGame extension packages, this content project is just a regular .NET solution. So you can either reference the file project where the thing is, you can have a NuGet, so long as this console app can see the code that the process is using, it will just work. And we're not perceiving any changes to an existing content extensions to work this. It's just the only thing that changes is how you consume it.
Right, exactly. So you can you could technically have a NuGet that has a custom content processor and just add it to this content project. This is the same in the 3D platformer starter kit. You just add another NuGet into here, and it'll immediately be consumed here, and it will work. So I think that stuff is really, really nice, having it this way. So this is the same sort of thing. Here we're using a regex rule instead of a wildcard rule. Harry really likes regexes. I hate regexes, but he really likes regexes. So there's regex in there for people that really want to use that, which gives you a lot more power in how you filter things. So it's definitely worth having. So include everything, then use a wildcard rule, because I wrote that and I prefer wildcards. I did start out FBX to say, hey, use our custom processor, exclude this one FBX because we're not using it, copy these JSON files into it, include these OGG files with an OGG importer and the sound effect processor, and then here we want to custom scale this character. So include this processor with a custom scale. So, and this all works the same way. I can enable the debugger if I want and launch it, and it all works basically the same. So this is proving to be very, very useful to work this way. I'll just run it because I'm here. There's really not, and you saw, I guess we can talk about that a little bit. Let's see if, actually this one's small, so I can maybe rebuild it real quick. If I go sort of rebuild everything at the moment, because I don't have it hooked up. And we're kind of working out, and these starter kits are going to basically be an example of this is how you do it. At some point we will have a template project that gives you this framework to start with, but for right now these starter kits are what we're using to as an example. But if I come in here and go, so if I go to this top project and just delete my content, it'll rerun this guy. And I think I'll let the debugger run because that'll make it easier to see. And I'll set a breakpoint, I guess here, so that it, it gets there when it finishes. So I'll run that, run the debugger. That's interesting. It was paying attention. I think it heard my F5. Wait, why did it do that? Oh, I know why. Because I hit the wrong window. I selected this one. I should have selected that one. So I'm going to hit F5. It's going to build the content. If I go to my build window here, you can see all the build output, what it built. In this case, it was already built, so did its thing. And we're kind of refining this output to get something a little nicer. But yeah, so you can see everything that built here, and it's hit F5, and it'll just continue with the demo itself.
Yeah, so it's demo out there, Tom, as well, is that one of the big things we're focusing on is making sure the caching works, so that content only builds when it changes, or when it or a process of value changes. But also building the content is completely optional. You can completely decouple it and just build content on the left, have it shipped to the actual game project on the right, and you don't have the same problems you have today where if there's a problem with MGCB or there's a problem with the content building, it stops you from running the game. By
Right.
decoupling it so that it's separate.
Right. It is separate. If you go in here, like with this project, we don't have. I'm kind of pushing against not having a giant targets file that does everything because I don't find it very useful, and it's something that is more complicated than it needs to be. So here's all the glue that makes it work. It's just this chunk here. It says, hey, target build content. Target desktop GL. Here's the folders to build everything into. Here's my command line of what I want to build. And then MS build this content project, call build and run. Here's the arguments, and it just basically runs this other content project and executes the work. So this is the entire glue between the game code and the content project. But you could decide, I don't want to do that. I'm going to omit this completely and not do that. You could also do other things, which is not we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but we have some other plans for this as well. So this is the entire glue for this is there. So it's very straightforward. I'm really happy with how this is turning out. We're just working out all the little details so that we have something that is extremely simple to work with and is very flexible. In the game itself, I don't know if we talked about it last time, but there's been some stuff that Dean had done, some new menus. This guy's all the same, and I immediately missed my first jump. That's embarrassing. It's because the controls are backwards, so I expect. So this guy's all working great. It's got a little animation there, a little interstellar, or in between screen stuff. So yeah, this stuff's working pretty great. We're happy with our results here. Oh no. So yeah,
we were the plans for the content server.
Right. So yeah, we still have plans for that. I think that the reason that we want to ship the 3D platformer and get it out to everybody publicly. It's been as a patron exclusive for 3 months now, I think. We wanted to get it out this time, but what's slowing us down is we're still working out some issues with the new content builder, and we want to have that perfect before we do this. So our plan is to wait till the content builder is working well enough to make this work. But part of that is we wanted to have this new content server concept. Again, this works the same way, except instead of it running and build everything offline and starting the game, it would start up and it would launch it from the game and ask the content server on demand to build stuff for it as it's running, so you can have runtime building of content. For right now, we're going to put that on hold and get this first version out without that content server feature. I mean, it's in there, and it sort of works if you want to deal with it, but we're not going to make it or finish it and polish it until after this initial build that just does what it used to do. It builds content, it just builds it a lot nicer and cleaner and is easier to operate with. But we are going to do the content server stuff. I mean, and there's kind of two parts to that, and Simon and I were going to talk about it a little bit, is there is the concept of, yes, you run the game and it builds content on demand as you're walking around. There's also just the concept of when the game starts, it can just build all your content, which is a separate thing, but it can also work that way, so that the game launches and builds your content. And that's really more of a it's more, I guess, and this is the case we want to work out, is a method so that if you wanted to ship a PC game and you hate the content pipeline, you don't want to build content at runtime or at build time, you want to build content dynamically, or let's say you have a game that's very moddable and you want the content to build automatically into optimized formats for gameplay, but does it on the fly, we want to set it up so it's very easy to include the content pipeline into your game and have it ship with it and it just work. It's not something we would recommend for like mobile platforms or consoles, but it would be definitely something to be done on PC platforms. So we're looking at that as another avenue to shipping this thing. So we're looking at different ways to use the content pipeline to give everybody a lot of flexibility with it. So yeah, that's basically where I'm at. I hate this level because it takes forever to wait for this thing, and I always can't tell how. I'm too late. No. So that's where we're at with these guys. I guess we can switch back to slides now. I'll stop streaming. Simon, you want to bring up slides again? Slides. Come on, slides. There we go. So we wanted to also kind of update everybody on like what our current progress is. So over the last 2 years, there's been a lot of things that we've been working on. And this is kind of like the things that are in progress are the things that we've been working on for the last 2 years, essentially. We've been pushing on this rework of the core framework at the, not like kind of the high-end API, but the core of it, the low-level part of it. So this is the new native API that talks to native code in order to call all our dependencies. So for calling DirectX or DX12 and Vulkan and the new SDL integration and everything is all going through a native API. And that's been a core thing that we've been working on so that we have, so that we can basically work into the future with this shared core library. For a very long time, every platform had its own implementation of things. It's all at the C# level. Everything has to have C# wrappers. It was hard to maintain, so we've been ditching that, and this has been a core thing that we've been doing. It's a slow, painful process, but once we get to the end of this, we're going to be really set up to handle any new platforms and expand easily, and we're going to share a lot of code. So that's been a core thing over the last year, or 2 years, essentially. The Vulkan and DX12, we're finally seeing the end of the tunnel on those things. I figure in the next couple months, we'll have these things to a very good preview state where people can actually use them and possibly ship games. And within the next 6 months, they should be rock solid and great for games. So that's been a very core thing. We're finally getting to the end of the road on that. I was just showing the new content builder. That's been stuff that Harry's been working on for the last 3 months, 4 months. And then even before then, it was something he was thinking about and discussing with us. So it's been a long time project that's, getting to the first good release of this thing. It will ship with 3.8.5 in at least a preview mode, but we want to make sure that preview is very strong. It just works out of the box. No one has any trouble with it. And it's really strong. If preview does not mean it's broken. It just means that we haven't tested it fully, and you might run into bugs, but the core stuff will work. We've been doing a push on refreshing consoles. That's been a big deal. We have essentially 5 console platforms. So that's a lot of console platforms to maintain. They have, grown stale in the past, so we're refreshing all those things with using the new native API and making sure they're up to date, the latest SDKs and everything. I'm starting to figure out how we're going to continue to maintain them into the future and keep them up to date with SDK changes. There's a lot of infrastructure and work that has to be done there. But that's been a big push over the last couple of years, is refreshing all the consoles. You're starting to see the new starter kits. I guess we skipped something. One of the things, I think we talked about it last meeting or the meeting before last, is we're doing Kenny's FPS starter kit. That's something that we're working on now. There's a lot of questions to answer there, but we're starting work on that. So we're hoping that probably by next AMA we'll be able to start sharing the something that's a good starting point that people can start using, and it'll work the same way as the 3D platformer starter kit. It'll be released to patrons first, and then we'll do a bunch of work to improve it and add a bunch of core functionality to it, so that when we release it, it's a pretty complete package that people can use as a starting point for FPS style games. So the new starter kits, we've been working a lot on that, and that includes also the Ascent demo stuff. A lot of work has gone into improving the docs and new tutorials. That's been a big push over the last 2 years. And we're doing a bigger push for social outreach. We started these open hour meetings. We've been pushing more content to YouTube and learning that, doing some YouTube shorts, doing some more video content. We're trying to really up our game in that in order to just have visibility and reach audience and get more users interested in using MonoGame. So that's been a big push for us. So then the question is, what's next at this point? With this roadmap getting close to being done, we need to start working on what's next after this. So as we roll off Vulkan and DX12, I figure that we're going to probably look at other platforms or other APIs potentially. Simon, you can jump to the next page. We're going to probably look at new platforms. That's something that's there. I can't say anything officially at the moment, but I can say that if you watch the Nintendo Direct from last Friday, Stardew Valley for Switch 2 was announced. That's all I can say about that. I think it's time that we start looking at our mobile releases and seeing how that fits in with everything that we're doing with the new low-level native pipeline. There's been a lot of talk about improving our effects pipeline in general, especially like adding in geometry shaders, adding in whole shaders, domain shaders, adding in some and even compute. That's something that we want to do. It's high on my list once we get all these other little things kind of wrapped up. So that's another big push that I hope to begin, in the next year. Hopefully early next year, so that we can get that all cleaned up, because the effects stuff that we have has worked, but it's very limiting to doing some high-end work. So we need to really improve that in order to really unlock stuff for MonoGame. And then runtime content building, that's kind of the content server and that, so that we can build content at runtime. There might be a specialization that we do here specifically for just building shaders at runtime that doesn't maybe involve the full pipeline, but is a simplification, so that at least for platforms that do support shader building at runtime, that we support that, in the content manager. Currently, the content manager does support like loading a PNG directly. If you just put a PNG in your content folder and don't run a pipeline build, and then go content manager dot load texture 2D, and then the name of the PNG without the PNG extension, it'll look for an XNB, and when it doesn't find the XNB, it says, well, let me see if there's an image here. Is there a PNG? Yes, load the PNG. So it currently does load content at runtime that is not compiled. That's a feature that we added a couple of months back. It's possible that we can do something similar for shaders specifically. So that gives anybody that really, 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 really does not want to mess with the content pipeline to basically have what they want, which is just load a shader just from source at runtime. It'll build it for you. That said, there's no guarantees that will be fast, and there's no guarantees that it will work on all platforms. It'll probably only work on PC platforms and maybe mobile if we decide to support it there, but it would be highly not recommended. Shaders can be very complex, and the more complex the shader gets, it's funny, I saw something today from that was posted an update to another engine, and they said, shaders are little programs. It's like, that is a complete lie. Shaders are not little programs. Some shaders are hundreds of lines of code. They're big programs, and they're complex, and compiling them is slow, and optimizing them is slow. So that's the fundamental fallacy that people have. It's like, shaders are little programs, and they're fast to build, and you can just build them at runtime. This is why when some games start up, they have a progress bar for compiling shaders. It's like they took the compiling process and made it an inconvenience to the player to have to wait for them instead of building them ahead of time. And that's why the content pipeline exists, is to build that content ahead of time. You wouldn't want it to like, I'm converting our video, I'm building video content when the game starts. It's like, you build stuff offline that can be built offline, and that's what the content pipeline's for. But some people really want runtime building content, and a lot of it's for convenience during development. So we want to provide all those options, and that's part of what we're thinking about here with extending the content building. And this is just the start of ideas for the next phase of things here coming into next year. We're definitely willing to hear other ideas of things that we should do. But after all this, I think, is when we're really going to start digging into what's a next gen API going to be like, that takes advantage of threaded rendering and things like that we currently can't do the way that it is. And all these steps will be a big, that it'll be a big step towards getting that done. So that's basically where we're at. Do we have another slide, or is that it?
I think that's it for the slide. I think there was a couple of questions around console support and how that's progressing,
Sure.
and how the new platforms are affected by that?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm still in progress of working on PlayStation support, moving it over to the new API. We're a little sidetracked there because of some problems with the C# support on that platform. That's being handled a couple different ways. There are some different solutions, but there is only one solution that we can really use, and this is specifically PlayStation 5. PlayStation 4, it's kind of solved, but it's kind of distracted us a little bit. And in the process here of doing the Vulkan work, we did updates to the native API. Well, those updates to the native API need to be ported to the console APIs. So there's a little bit of work there we need to do clean up and unify that. And that's something that we have to unfortunately handle internally because all that stuff has to be private. But we need to make it smoother for ourselves to update those things. And it's really my responsibility to make sure that happens. So it's on me. I need to be working a little harder on that stuff to make sure the consoles are kept up to date with the main repo. But there's a lot of things happening in the main repo on a day-to-day basis. So it's been, difficult for our small team here to pull it together. But the console updates are coming along with everything. I will commit to making sure that at least the PlayStation ones are updated. I know that Switch is updated and Xbox is updated, but I know that there's been a couple of bug reports on the Xbox side. So I need to look into that, and I need to get PlayStation done. By next AMA, we should be talking about the new console platform that I can't talk about other than, the Nintendo Direct was really great last Friday. So there's a lot of stuff going on with consoles there, and all this stuff will work for consoles. That's the whole point of this.
I think that even includes some of the non-private APIs, so things like the Steam Deck and the ROG Allies and things like that, which are all not open platforms, but they're platforms that use standard capabilities. But we're always looking for people to test on those. I think there was an issue raised recently about the Steam Deck and audio, I think it was.
There was a bug there, but we determined, so there's a bug with audio on Steam Deck, and what it basically was, they were running the Windows version of the game through, I think it's called Photon, is that what it's called? The compatibility layer that lets Windows stuff run on Steam Deck. Proton, there you go. Proton, same thing. There was basically Proton has a problem, dealing with some Windows audio, or it's actually video API, I think is what it was. Actually, I think if I remember correctly, but it was having some trouble with that and was doing the wrong thing there. And, there's nothing we can do about it. It's just how that works. Other than the only thing we can do about it is to stop using those Windows APIs that are hard for them to make compatible there. And the developer can fix it also by just, shipping a Linux build that actually works on Steam Deck. We should definitely
make. I took away from that was we probably do need like a Linux building tutorial especially for people who want to use Windows. Something to demonstrate that in process, and using, because GitHub and also a lot of the other automation pipelines, they have Linux hosts. MonoGame is a cross-platform framework. All you need to do is simply say, use a Linux host, build MonoGame. There's the output, and they can ship it to Steam for building. But we do need docs to sort of describe that.
Yeah, I think we haven't really treated Steam Deck as its own concept of a platform, but we should definitely start thinking of it as a platform. Even though it's just Linux, we should definitely start thinking of it as a platform and making some bigger strides to explain to people how they deploy for Steam Deck and things like that. So that would probably be a good thing. And I guess this also falls into line with Microsoft's new thing, which I'm not sure how that's doing. What is it called? The ROG Ally something or other. I don't remember what it is.
The ROG X Ally. Or ROG Ally X.
How do I even remember that?
Yeah, effectively that is just a Windows machine running the Windows GDK. It's nothing fantastic about it.
Yeah. So that's something we definitely want to support. I just don't know how it's going to do. It's kind of an expensive thing. I think that we'll see how it turns out, but there's no reason why we can't support it. We have all the bits to support it. But I know it'll become important for anybody that targets Xbox that they'll be looking to support this thing as well. Man, that thing's a monstrosity, isn't it? It's just a screen with an Xbox controller around it.
Well, ironically, it's just the ROG Ally branded with some extra bits in it, I think. It's got like a different game view mode and a few other things.
Right.
There's a few
ROG Ally is its own ROG Ally. It's its own thing. This is just an Xbox ROG Ally. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't follow a lot of these things, though.
Yeah, something to partner with Asus to ship out.
Right. So yeah, I think that we want to support more of these things, and as we get some of these core refactors done, and right the ship on a lot of these things, we should be able to start moving into these other directions. So yeah, it'll include stuff like that. Let's see any other questions.
There was some other questions about the other 2D tutorials, and the 3D tutorials in the mix. So they're progressing. 2 of the tutorials are inching closer to getting released. That's both the shader series and also the mobile series. Those who've been observant, that the authors have been reaching out on Discord to get other people to pitch in and review it, just like they did with the Aris Turtles tutorial. The 3D tutorial and the networking ones, they're taking a bit longer. The authors are doing what they can, but they're just having some personal issues trying to get things done. But they keep working on things and keep pushing ahead. But as soon as I have more and more, you'll have them. But the ultimate aim is that with the 3.8.5 release, those tutorials will come to fruition with that release. Especially the mobile one, because it has some dependencies on some fixes that were in 3.8.5. So you can keep up to date, keep looking. That's Simon. And we'll keep you up to date with how they're doing and progressing. But ultimately, if you want to pitch in, those tutorials are available online, and you can review them and help the author make it the best it can for the entire community. So they're all there. Have at it, as it were.
Cool.
Right, looking through. Yeah, we certainly didn't need more tutorials about using automation to basically automate is that word? Automate a lot of the things you can do, and especially as we're moving to things like the content builder process, the ability to ship that to an automation system to just do it for you will be invaluable.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess what else? Something else we're missing, guys? I'm forgetting now.
I don't know if Thomas, you can answer this one. There's one from Aris Turtle asking about different flavors of Linux. Certainly a grey area for me to. I don't know if we can talk about what kind of flavors of Linux MonoGame supports.
Mostly the ones that are supported also by the .NET framework. So the .NET framework is specifically built mostly for, or mainly for, Ubuntu, Arch Linux, and I guess Debian, and that's maybe all, I guess. And one thing to consider is that the Steam Deck is running on an Arch Linux, and it's likely going to be a focus. So if you want to be more serious about supporting the Steam Deck, we want to make sure that it works just fine on Arch Linux.
And as ever, if you've got these devices, please help out and test and report any issues with either while you're developing or while you're just checking projects, or even using our lovely 2D tutorial that we've got and whipping that onto a Steam Deck and see how it runs. We can pay Chris with more feedback on his tutorial.
No.
It still amazes me, no matter how many reviews, how many people have looked at it, we still get people going, there's a typo there. You're like, seriously? I mean, upwards of over 100 people have reviewed this and gone through, and people still find a typo that someone else didn't. But we appreciate our community pitching in to keep it all up to date. Oh, that'd be interesting. Sim get MonoGame working on one of the old Atari systems, like the Atari 2500 or 2600.
Yeah, good luck.
Well,
Didn't some, I
Dean had
think
it running on a Pi.
Yeah, but I guess that what the Sam are mentioning is the RTVCS. VCS. It's actually a Linux-based console, so it's released quite recently, and it can run games. And as far as I know, it runs MonoGame games because we've made one here at our studio. So, and if I may add just about Linux and Steam Deck support, if I have the time to, I am willing to write the documentation for this. And one thing is that there is a cool thing about GitHub and the recent .NET releases is that you don't quite need to own a Linux machine or even a virtual machine to make Linux build, even natively using publish IoT, because you can leverage GitHub Actions and automate all the builds using Desktop.gl and soon Desktop.vk. And just making builds and even automatically pushing them to Steam. And I know that because this is what we've been doing here internally at our studio for a few years now, and it just works. So it works natively on Steam Deck, it works natively on Linux and so on, and there is basically nothing much to do. So I hope to be able to document that, but just wanting to reassure people that you don't need to own anything of Linux to make it run on Steam Deck actually.
Yeah, thanks for that, Thomas. I suppose there's an interesting debate, Tom, is that there's questions about MonoGame 5. Granted, it's still a footnote in our sort of roadmap of what that dream would be. I don't think we've ever formally discussed what that would take, other than it will be all new. I suppose daily, the idea of what MonoGame 5 is, especially we now have the native pipeline, what that would be.
Yeah, we've never really defined exactly what that would be. I think that we all agree that there is some plan for having to enhance the API, right, from what we have to something a little bit better. And obviously part of that is having some form of I think it's having some form of render context. Like if you think about the rendering side of things, MonoGame is monolithic. It has a graphics device. You call draw on a graphics device. Well, the modern APIs, you don't do that. You call draws on command lists. You get a command list. You call draws on command lists, and then you submit command lists. I think we need a high-level API that is more like that will work across all the platforms. And it gives us some form of threading, so that you can do some more advanced stuff. But you don't. Ideally, you wouldn't have to use that. You can use a very simplified version. So that's some core of it. Is that some basic things like being able to some commonality between vertex buffers and index buffers as far as their types and things like that, and just buffers in general. Those are the kind of things that we need to happen. That needs to happen at the low level. At the high level, there's a desire for things like some sort of concept around a mesh batch or a model batch or something of that nature of batching together 3D geometry very easily. That could be done even with the current APIs. Could maybe be done better with a better API. So there's ideas around things like that, and then plus just the low-level graphic stuff of just having a better effect system that gives us more flexibility there with effects, as far as having other stages that we don't currently have, having compute, things like that. Those are all part of moving towards a newer API. And whenever we make that jump, which I don't think is happening immediately for sure, I think when we do that jump, it'll probably be, a new branch off of develop that's going to be doing that. It'll kind of live separately, and at some point will become the thing we focus on, but it won't kill old MonoGame. It will still be there with the original API. But I'm hoping that this change will still allow you to run stuff using the original API. It's just that this is an API on top of that lets you get deeper into the details. But the old stuff is still there. If you wanted to use that, you could. So I don't know. That's my thinking, is that we don't want to completely replace the old API with something completely different. I think that we want to do. I think what we want to do is be able to put something new side by side that gives you more functionality, and doesn't break the existing API, but really exposes some of the stuff that's really been there the entire time or been there for a very long time that you could now take advantage of. And then some of that will also include like improvements to audio, and which again, audio, there's not been a lot of improvements over the last, audio is kind of a solved thing in a lot of ways, and really everything else is pretty much okay. I think one of the things I do want to look into a little bit, which is not probably a new next gen API thing, but just a current API thing, is supporting multiple windows officially across desktop machines so that we can do multiple windows and not have just a single window game. We did that once for Windows itself, but we never supported it on other platforms. We could, yeah, dynamic sprite font stuff, or not sprite fonts, but dynamic fonts. So they're built on the fly at runtime at high resolution, instead of it being something that is built offline as a plain image that's fixed resolution. That's something that we want to do. So there are things like that we can do some improvements, but at the core, I think the thing we want to do is always kind of honor that legacy of XNA and how simple it was and how approachable it was and easy to use and actually fun to use. And I think that's the thing that we want to maintain, is keeping it fun to use. I'll be the first to admit, like, the content pipeline became not fun to use very quickly, not quickly, but it became not fun to use over the years. And we're trying to rectify that now and make the content pipeline fun to use again and simple and easy to work with, and let you work around it when need be. And all these things are, part of that is trying to make things fun to use again and simple, instead of going the C++ route, or, the route of like, well, how do I bend Unreal Engine into doing what I want to do here? Kind of thing. We want to give people full control. That's kind of the benefit of MonoGame. And we want to give people the, something that lets them actually write code and not just drag blocks together as a thing. So, yeah. So I think those are all part of, where we're moving to in the roadmap moving forward.
Right. I think it's fair to say that we need to draw it to close. I mean, we're actually almost to time, which is scary.
Yeah. Move forward 2 slides, 2 things to, talk about here. Yeah. Donate. We're always looking to increase our donations so we can spend more time on this. It's important. We want to be one of those alternatives so that you're not stuck with whatever wacky pricing scheme Unity wants to come up with next. Because I don't know. It's been a couple of years. They might come up with something new now. I don't know how their stock price is doing. I guess we'll have to look at that and decide what they're going to do. And yeah, we're trying to, and we're pushing on getting more donations ourselves. We're making a more concerted effort for that. But the donations of the community are things that are most important to us, because for you guys to donate and to be this excited and show up for these things tells us that we're doing something right, and we just need to do more of it and faster. And unfortunately, that takes time and money. So that's what we're trying to do. And if you go forward one more slide, I put a new slide in there.
I think that is the last slide. Oh, sorry. Okay, this one.
I don't know if you can see it or
Oh,
not.
well, no. Sorry, it's no.
Hang on.
Oh no, I can see it. 1 second.
Do I have to enable it? I'm
No,
sorry. I
you
was
don't.
editing. I was editing slides during the presentation. There you go. I don't know how to use. I don't know how to use this thing anymore. There we go.
No. Okay, we've stopped sharing altogether now.
Start sharing again.
Hold on. Yeah, I got it. Hold on.
Okay.
There we go. There we go.
Yay. Okay. So we have a Twitch now. We started that. It's just the beginning of it. We're gonna. I don't know. We'll have to have a discussion after this if we're going to move these proceedings to Twitch or something. It'll help with getting more audience, and at the same time, maybe it'll be more reliable than Discord, which is annoying, but it's unfortunate, but maybe that's what we need to do. We could probably still simulcast it here, but maybe we don't want to depend on Discord as our way to gather everybody and gather streams. Maybe we'll have to discuss that. That's a bigger discussion. And then, we're on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe and follow us so that we have more subscribers. And this video is also being simulcast. This presentation is being simulcast there as well right now. So yeah, those are our updates for the month.
Yep. Okay, so let's try and draw this to a close then. Thank you everyone for attending. As you see, the recordings will be both on YouTube and Twitch now. For now and forevermore, so long as we don't lose internet or things break again. But as ever, we continue to try and improve with all the resources we have at our disposal. So thank you everyone for coming, and you know where to find us. We're on the Discord, we're on the chats, we're on the socials, we're everywhere. And if you have a question or if you simply want to help out, then please get in touch, and we'll see you again next month or in between as we do more shorts. Okay, everyone, goodbye.
Bye.